And welcome back to our Classic Games Done Quick 10th anniversary special. Real quick, before we get into Gunstar Heroes, I just want to remind everybody that these hotfix broadcasts do happen year-round. We have weekly shows, we have special events like the AGDQ anniversary broadcast, and if you do enjoy what you're seeing, you want to see more of these broadcasts, we do appreciate your support. So whether you're able to subscribe on Twitch, you can cheer on Twitch. If you're watching on YouTube, you can watch some ads. Anything you're able to do really helps us out. It enables us to continue providing these broadcasts. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and let Mike once again take it away, as, again, he is our original CGDQ runner of this game, Gunstar Heroes.
So this is Gunstar Heroes. There's been a lot of little improvements in this game. There's no big skips since I ran this game. The time has been pushed down lower since I've run it. I've actually not beat my PB from 2005 because there's a large RNG factor, which I'll explain later in the run. And as you can see, we're doing the CGD category of Expert. And I'm ready to go very soon. So once I press start on the title screen, that'll be time. So 3, 2, 1, and go. So I pick Fixed Shot and the Flame because those are the best weapons to pick. And I pick Pink Stage because it gives me the most chances to get the Flame Chaser. So I really, really want the Flame Chaser from this first guy, and I didn't really get it. I ideally want the Flame Chaser or the Lightning Flame. Those are the two best weapons to get. I unfortunately didn't get those, so I'm using the Double Flame. I don't know if it's actually faster than the Flame Force, but it causes less lag, so that's why I'm using it. Yeah, and I actually have to be aware of the balloons because I don't have a weapon that can cancel bullets, as you just saw. And hopefully on the second round, I will get it, because if I don't get on the second round, okay, that's better. Okay, that's better. I can work with that. I deal with Flame Chaser, but, marathon luck. So the Lightning Torch, as I like to call it, or the Lightning Flame, and the Flame Chaser are the two best weapons in the game because they can cancel bullets. They also have some of the highest DPS in the game, especially on Expert. On Easy, it's actually faster to just jump kick and slide into enemies because the enemy defense values are so much lower. But actually don't know how to fight this boss for Lightning, so this will be interesting. Oops. Fortunately, you can take a fair amount of damage in this game. And you can just hang out in the top left corner and be safe here. One cool thing about the Flame Chaser is once I get it, you can kind of write letters during the auto-scrollers and stuff like that and have a little bit of fun. For an actual run, this would be a reset because you just want the Flame Chaser right away. But, we got to deal with the luck that we've been given. Hopefully, I'll get a Chaser from the next set of items. Having the Lightning Torch is good, but having the Flame Chaser is better because, as you can see, the Lightning Torch doesn't really have a whole lot of range. There we go. Alright, so we're sliding through here because we don't want to interrupt the bees. Because the bees, they don't do a lot of damage, but they interrupt us. And so we're going to do a little trick here. Get it? We got it. So you want to jump kick twice so you get under this boss, and then use the Flame Chaser to protect yourself here. This is actually one of the few bosses where using the Lightning Torch is just better, because no matter what angle the boss fires at, you're pretty much always hitting the boss. You generally want the boss to be right above you, which is what I'm getting, so you can always hit the boss while you're simultaneously protecting yourself from bullets. And there's stage 1. So the next stage we're doing is Black Stage, and this is where the biggest source of RNG in the game comes from, and what is really going to be the biggest determinant in my time for this run, and you're going to see why very soon. But it is actually it is actually minutes in terms of RNG. There's no real elegant way to deal with this. You kind of want to get the enemies away from you. You can try to just take hits, but then that'll also interrupt your Flame Chaser. So, you just kind of have to improvise and see, you know, what you have to do. This is where the bullet canceling becomes very useful, and that was a very good fight. And now we're at the Dice Palace. This is complete RNG. For races, they actually use a one die roll where you always roll a 1. You can roll a 1, a 2, or a 3, and you generally want to roll 2s and 3s. All 3s is actually not optimal because you won't always get the fastest tiles that way. And we just want to take care of this dude by hitting him in the head, and boom. So what we want to get is the glitch drop, which is a little difficult to do, but even if we miss the glitch drop once, we want to still try it again because it needs a lower bounce for the die. And 3 is good. And so the big source of RNG is not just the die rolls here, which are, as I said before, completely random. You'll see a tile called the way back. Oof. I got really bad luck there. That's fine. And so if you get the way back, it takes you all the way back. Yeah, as you can see in the bottom left corner, right by boss. I don't know what the chances of getting the way back are, but I'm convinced that it's over 50%. Like, it is... Even in situations where you think you have only, like, a third, you know, chance of getting it, it seems to happen more often than not. So I'm not getting my hopes up, but we'll see. And yes, as someone pointed out in chat, this did definitely inspire Cuphead. The creators have constantly said this is an inspiration of, like, Gunstar Heroes is an inspiration for the game, and the most, you know, obvious, you know, part of it is, you know, Dice Man's Casino. Except, fortunately, in Cuphead, you can manipulate that die. In this game, you cannot. Yeah, so while I like playing this game for fun in marathons, I don't really like grinding a time down for this game because you know, there's just so much RNG and you have to just reset so much on this Dice Palace. Because you can even have a run where you dodge the way back, but if you just hit a lot of tiles along the way, especially a lot of bad ones, then you still need to reset to get, like, a good time. Whoops. Unfortunately, when they grab you, that doesn't hurt you, it just loses time. And okay. We're actually getting pretty good luck so far through the Dice Palace just because we're not getting a lot of ones. Obviously, some fights are better than others. And generally, even if you're jumping around, you can't do it while you're jump kicking, but you just want to maintain your flame focus if you can as you're jumping to move. That's the one disadvantage of the fixed shot, is that you can't, you know, move while you're firing, but at the same time, it makes it a lot easier to aim the flame chaser while also maintaining your position. So that's why it's fixed shot, and you can jump kick to travel quickly, and that's unfortunate. This is probably the longest fight out in the Dice Palace. So this is not what we really want. Ow. Okay, that's unfortunate. That's fine. We have plenty of health. And once you destroy all the parts of Super Gondola, it's done with. Let's see if we get the way back. If I don't get the way back, then we have a chance of a PB. If I do get the way back, then that chance is pretty much gone. Oh, we didn't get the way back. Okay. And so we might have a good time in this game. Okay. Here. crouch. So even though it looks like I'm going to hit this, I'm not, because your hurt box doesn't change when turning around from crouching, as far as I know. That's going to be yellow. Yeah, sorry. Here. And he's going to die before he really gets to use another pattern, and we're good. So that was a good black fight. I too like the random cow in the background, so... Oh, he gives us a gem! Oh, it's a fake, so we gotta hit him a bit, or else he's just like, thumbs up, I'm so sneaky. But... We got the gem. So... This is yet another auto-scroller in the game. This game has a lot of auto-scrollers. This is pretty easy when you have the Flame Chaser, because it does cancel bullets. And it is the main weapon to use in Expert. As I mentioned before, if you're playing like on an easy or normal run, on easy it's definitely faster to use jump kicks and the like. On normal, I'm not 100% sure what's fastest. It might actually be on the Lightning Chaser, because that automatically homes in on enemies. And enemies don't really have enough defense to like defend themselves from it. On Expert and Hard, the Lightning Chaser is basically useless because it does like almost no damage. Oops. Lost a little bit. So if there's one unfortunate thing about the Flame Chaser, it is the fact that it can actually cause a fair... I don't know what hit me there. It can actually cause a fair bit of lag. So you need to take care of these guys pretty quickly so you don't cause too much of that lag. It's especially apparent in one stage that's coming up late in the game, where I'm going to want to use the Flame Chaser as little as possible to minimize lag. Just because there's so many sprites in the screen. You know, Genesis has that blast processing and, you know, does what Nintendo don't, but even the Genesis has its limits in terms of which blasts it can process. How long did it take me to learn this speedrun? It's kind of weird, because I learned how to use the Flame Chaser before I did the speedrun, so learning the speedrun did not take me long. I speedran this game, like, way back in 2000. Like, way back in the dark ages of SDA and, like, GCRs and all that. That's not good. You just want to take care of these things so they don't like shoot you up too bad, and there you go. And so, once you learn the Flame Chaser, learning the Expert mode speedrun is not too hard because it cancels bullets and everything. And so I'm going to take this area a little slowly. There's something to do with oscillation cycles that determines like a soft lock. I don't know if like cause or not. I'm very bad at determining where the oscillation cycles are, but if I hit it, then I lose like 1.5 minutes to 1:45. So that's why I took it like a little slowly there. Oops, didn't want to slide. Okay, that was a good fight.
All right, Mike. You know, we've been talking about the game for a while. Now it's time for the retrospective. You know, this is your time to sound off and talk all about CGDQ. So tell me, Mike. Tell me about...
I need to focus a little bit on this boss, though.
All right, go ahead. After the boss is dead.
He's not hard. You just kind of throw him, but there's just a rhythm you want to get into. It looks like I've gotten it. You might get hit a bit. Not a huge deal. Okay, he's beat. Okay, now we can do the CGDQ retrospective. Right. And if we get the soft lock, then we just have more time to talk about CGDQ.
Perfect. Yeah, so, like, I don't know. Just, I know, like, we've tried to, like, tell this story a lot, but just, like, to kind of talk about, like, what happened at the start. Because, you know, obviously that's a story in it.
Yeah, now's the perfect time to talk about it, because this stage is a complete auto-scroller. In fact, let me do something first. C, G, D, and let's do the Q. It's going to look a little sloppy. We're going to do the lowercase q to make it look a little more legible. Okay, so CGDQ. So basically back in 2009, I remember I was on vacation, and while I was on vacation, so to put in perspective, the two biggest like charity groups were the speed gamers, who I don't think a lot of people know nowadays, but they were very influential in like the early days of streaming and charity marathons. And Desert Bus for Hope, which is still a pretty big group nowadays, and still does their Desert Bus for Hope marathon usually every November, if I'm not mistaken. And it's worth noting that like Twitch did not exist back in 2009. Back in 2009, it was Justin TV, and like SDA was like the speedrun site. That might seem weird now, because yes, I will admit even as a former admin of SDA is fairly outdated, although it definitely has its place in speedrunning history. It was the place back then. Sorry, I have to focus a little bit because I really don't want to get hit by those lasers like I just did, because they don't trigger invincibility on you and they do 16 damage per hit. All right, so back to CGDQ. So I remember there was a thread on the SDA forums, and people were like, "Oh, let's do a charity marathon ourselves," and like people were just suggesting games left and right, and like all this stuff. And then like I got back from vacation, I'm like, okay, this is a good idea, but like we need to have some focus. Like there's no focus here, and and so I determined that it should be at MagFest, because that's where we had our first meetup at SDA earlier that year, and it was close to me, in the DC area, and that I thought they would be able to help us a lot, with their resources and experience, and in conventions and stuff like that. So, and I also determined that it should be classic games, because that was really I would say the forte of SDA back then was the more classic games. There were definitely PC game speedrunners, but they were more in Europe, and they were bigger on segmented runs, which are runs that like where you save like in the middle of your run and then start like a new section or a segment of your run. And so, time goes on, and like back then, I even like suggested games for people to pick up, because like there were only so many people at CGDQ. There were only 20 of us who were there, and I think a little less than 20 of us who actually ran games, if I'm not mistaken. And if you're wondering like how it came to be in my mother's basement, well, fast forward to New Year's Eve. All right. Well, first off, I need to mention 7 Force. 7 Force has 7 forces. In the lower difficulties, you do not have to fight all the forces. On Expert, you have to fight all the forces. Sorry, I'm a little focused on this boss. So CGDQ Retrospective is on a little bit of a pause right now as I focus in this form. This is one of the forms that requires a bit more focus than the others. Okay. That's fine. That's not much damage. Okay. So CGDQ, fast forward to New Year's Eve. We're at MagFest. Yes, CGDQ was to take place January 1st to 3rd, 2010. And so most of you who have been to MagFest know it as being in the Gaylord Hotel, which is a really huge event hotel in DC. Back then, it was at a place called Hilton Marks Center, which is noticeably smaller, still a decently big hotel. But what was noticeable is that, I signed up, and I remember I had paid $100 to get some Wi-Fi modems to use for our event. And they're like, oh yeah, about that. The modems don't work. They're like, the provider was brought out and the modems don't work. And like, that's not really MagFest's fault, but they told me right at New Year's Eve, the day before CGQ was supposed to start. And they're like, oh yeah, and the wireless code is gold. So I run around for like 3 hours just trying to find the IT person at MagFest and get some helpful information from them. And like I finally get in contact with the IT person from MagFest, and they're like, yeah, the internet's not great here. I don't remember exactly what he said, but he's like, oh yeah, did you know that the Wi-Fi promo code is gold? I'm like, I knew that. So we're very dejected and defeated. And I remember Frezzy Man, the Sweet of Speed, who ran the NES Contra games and 15 games at the event. was like, "Hey, Mike, drink a beer and then go to bed," which was honestly some of the best advice I could have heard.
That's top tier advice.
Yeah, exactly. So, I remember the next day we were like, okay, let's try and see, if our internet setup even works. And so we tried it, and it turns out that like in my mom's house, the internet worked. Like we had a working stream, and this was just Flash Media Live Encoder, which like you had an audio input, a video input, and that was your stream. That's how Flash Media Live Encoder works. I mean, other options were, I'm trying to remember, there was Camtasia, which was not the greatest software, and then there was, like Live. It was a $500 streaming software,
Nice.
and it was like broadcast level.
Yeah, I do remember Flash Media Live Encoder. That I did my first stream ever with that, and I can attest to the fact that it was just not very good.
I mean, it was good for its time. It let you stream in a very simple, primitive way, but yeah, it was very much a product of, 2009, 2010, 2011. I don't even know if you could get a Twitch stream working on it at this point. And a fun little fact is that we decided to go with Ustream. Like Ustream was the service we wanted to use because on Justin TV they started booting people if you got over 1,000 viewers, which we thought was unlikely, but we wanted to be safe, who were outside of the US because they had like non-existent servers outside of the US. And for those of you who know Twitch mostly for like video gaming and like real life streams now, back then Justin TV, they kind of upgraded when Justin TV went to rebranded as Twitch because Justin TV was well known for like pirate broadcasts of like sports games and and like cartoons and like TV shows like The Simpsons and the like. Like if you were looking at the front page, you could frequently find either a broadcast sports game or a TV show. So, they were kind of trying to up brand with Twitch. But anyway, I digress. My point is, back to New Year's Day. And I remember I got in contact with their IT guy at MagFest. And he was like, and the day before he was like, you can contact me if you face any issues and, we'll give you an update on the internet, once you get there. Oh, nice. We want to throw the platforms because they can insta-kill the bosses like that. And so I text him, and he goes, very encouraging, who is this? So it's noon, and we go to MagFest, or like afternoon. And I remember at one point, it was like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and they were like, don't worry, we have plenty of time to make the stream work. And I was like, And I remember we had to do a panel, and we wanted to prepare more than we did last year, but we couldn't because we were so busy trying to get the stream to work. And I remember like not really wanting to do the panel, but about Speed Demo's archive. But the panel went okay. We showed a video and like went okay. And then we struggled with Internet Magfest for a very long time. There was a guy, I think his name was Thresh, who really tried to help us out. He even tried tethering his phone. It did not work out. And it turns out that the Hilton Mark Center back then, I don't know if it's still true now, it probably isn't, was locked in a really bad contract with their cable provider. And because of that, they had to buy the internet from their cable provider, and it was really bad DSL. Like the upload was no more than half a megabit, if even that much. It was so bad. So the one time we got the stream working at MagFest, it was like, so you know how Mega Man won in a Gutsman stage? Oh, by the way, you want to like mash there so you can get the glitch throw, which is the best way to throw this guy because it's the fastest animation, like that. I'm trying to bait him into jumps, but he's not really cooperating. Anyway, back to CGDQ, the more important part. So, like Mega Man and Gutsman, it's like a total slideshow. Like the platforms are teleporting, and they're sometimes open, and they're sometimes not, and it is just not working out. So eventually, like around 6 or 7, like when the marathon's supposed to start, because it's supposed to start at 6 p.m. I distinctly remember, like, I was not in a good place in my head because I was like so stressed out and so nervous. And I think a bunch of us came to consensus. I know Breakdown was definitely of the opinion that we'd have to pack it up and go home. And this was very problematic because a lot of people were staying at the MagFest hotel and they didn't, bring a car or anything because they were expecting to stay at MagFest and broadcast the fundraiser at MagFest. Now, the funny thing is that being in my mom's basement actually ended up being a boon because first off, MagFest in the main game room, we were on the side and there's like all these arcade machines and like rhythm games and stuff like that. So it's super loud and you would have trouble hearing anything in the convention room floor. But so yeah, it turns out that we had to go transport all of the equipment, which was nowhere near as much as a modern GDQ, but it was still a decent amount of equipment from MagFest to my mom's basement. And we didn't start until 9 p.m., 3 hours late. And we didn't even have a commentary stream set up until, I want to say, either the end of Mega Man 2 or Mega Man 3, which is our second or third run in.
Yeah. So clarification point, they had to have separate streams because,
Yeah, exactly. Flash Media Live Encoder. So we had a separate commentary and game stream. And we kept that up until AGDQ 2012, AGDQ 2011. And then we're like, all right, so there's the one exception I'm going to take for the not using my Flame Chaser here or using as little as possible, just because I just want to get rid of those lasers because they don't do a lot of damage, but they can be very annoying. You really don't want to get hit by those missiles. That's the big no-no.
So how exactly did your mom's basement come into play? Because obviously this is not planned.
No. This was not planned. Like some of us were expecting to stay at my mom's house, but it was funny because right as we decided to go, I'm kind of skipping parts of the story because I haven't looked at my notes, but anyway, so right after we decided to go to my mom's house, I had a very dignified phone call with my mom going Mom, can we use your basement? And my mom's reasoning during this was that she did not want to be anywhere near a bunch of nerds playing video games during this time. So she was already at a bed and breakfast and she was like, well, if you pay for half of my bread and breakfast, then sure. And I was like, oh, okay, great. I'll do that. And so she was there. And what's funny is that when she started watching the original CGDQ, she just kind of went, oh yeah, my son's doing something this fundraiser. I should look up, the website and see what's going on. And so she does that, and her first thought was, oh, the basement looks horrible. The pictures are off tilt, and it's kind of, maybe it's a little dirty or something like that. And another funny story from before we started, the mood was very pessimistic before we started because we had no idea that this would work out. In fact, two of the runners in CGDQ, I won't name shame or anything like that. They thought it was going to fail, and we would all go back to SDA style speedrunning. And that we just, move on from it, the year after. And they didn't practice their games very much as a result.
All right, time to look up who had the worst runs. No.
Yeah, so CGQ didn't start until 3 hours late, and there's so much working against it. For example, our microphone was a webcam from a Logitech microphone, and it wasn't even one of the modern Logitechs, the 920s or the 930s or anything like that. It didn't even have HD you could do 720 at 5 frames per second because that was considered super advanced back in 2009, 2010, and actually, interesting note. I'm gonna make a side note. So it was during this run that we hit the viewer peak. We're whoa, 1,500 viewers, and right now we're at 6,000 watching right now. But back then we're oh my, wow, 1,500. That's so many. And that's when Ustream started crapping out and started booting people from our server, and it went down to 700 viewers instantly. And then people started to try to have side streams to watch embeds I know Poexel had to watch one, but the problem is that on live stream, you had a limit of 55 viewers at once. So like only so many people could watch like those side streams that like were trying to make it visible for everyone.
So miraculously, you managed to make CGDQ actually happen.
Yes, exactly.
I have to say, this is like, as somebody who's like involved with organizing events and whatnot, this is like legitimately one of the most impressive organization like stories I've ever heard. To actually transport an entire marathon from one event to another in like a matter of hours is like very, very impressive.
Yeah.
Like that is like unheard of. You can't do that.
Exactly. I mean, we definitely wouldn't be able to do it with modern GDQs, but that's why the first thing we do when checking a location is we test the internet. Because if you don't have internet, you don't have an event. We have learned our lessons since then.
That's right. So the event starts, miraculously, and everybody's having a good time. So, do you like what was your like state at that point? Because like not only did you just like go through that like whirlwind of like trying to actually get this thing started, but you had a bunch of runs to practice too. And
I remember. I mean, I practiced my runs beforehand, but still, like I did like 10 runs at CGDQ, and I remember. My first run was Mega Man X3, and I really didn't want to run it. Like, I super didn't want to run it. And the thing about my 49-minute time, that was a bad time even back then. Because, like, my first Mega Man X3 any percent time would be, like, since they use RTA time, it'd be, like, something like a 45-minute time, I want to say, or 46 minutes. So, like, even that time was bad by those standards back then. I'm actually getting really good RNG on this boss. Oh, spoke too soon. Alright, so so I had 10 runs, and I was very stressed out. I remember constantly apologizing to people and like trying to set stuff up in a hurry, like setting up the tracker and everything, which was Chippin, which we ended up killing at AGDQ 2013. That's another story. It turns out that I really had trouble de-stressing, and I remember I really didn't want to play X3, and for those of you who know that run, or were there for Luis's run, which was really good, very much the opposite of my CGDQ run, I was not playing well, I was very stressed, and I forgot Vile. In fact, this was, back when chat was, like, more readable, because it was, about, like, 500, 600 people at the time. So Tiki was yelling in chat, Mike, get Vile, get Vile. And like, fortunately, he saved the run, because if I didn't get Vile, the run becomes a lot longer, because then you can't get the Beam Saber, which saves a ton of time. And I remember one of the things that I did is I positioned myself in Graveyard Shift. Like I did Turtles at like late at night, and I played Secret Mile late at night. We're already running late because it's already running 3 hours late. And we were actually dropping games during the run. In fact, one of my famous lines that I said in like one of the side videos that's like on some Trihex alt channel was like, I said, I'm dropping Castlevania 2 because it sucks, or something like that. Which, to be fair, I don't think it's as good as the other first 4 classic Castlevanias. So
I mean, I don't blame you for that one.
Exactly. Like, I'm not gonna backtrack on that one. I'm not gonna try to apologize for that one. But like, yeah, it was like the only marathon where we like ended up cutting multiple runs. The only time that I've really like cut runs for, aside from like runner availability or emergencies and stuff like that, is I cut my own Gunstar Heroes run like at the first AGDQ. Whoops. That was a little sloppy. Okay, I don't know if we'll get it on this cycle. Yeah. Fine. Okay. And it was kind of a miracle that CGQ happened, but like, yeah, I had these late night runs, and like during Secret of Mana, like I was so sleep deprived and so stressed out that like I started passing out. And for some reason, So I told people not to do gimmick donation incentives because that was one thing the speed gamers did. We thought we were better than the speed gamers and we shouldn't do that. But then like someone brought up hot sauce and I'm like, in my very sleep deprived, like stressed out state, I'm like, that's a great idea to make me wake up. And I didn't get like Tabasco or anything like that. I got like the Blair's Ultra Death Sauce, which is like one of those like, 50 or 100,000 Scoville sauces. So it's not like, a lightweight sauce or anything like that. I'm like, I'm a true gamer or something, whatever. And I was in like, when I drank that hot sauce because it was mint, I woke up, but like I was in complete pain when I woke up. And like, even after that, like I just had to bow out and go to sleep. And fortunately, Secret of Mana is like the one game where you can have players just, substitute for you, like when need be. Because you can just drop in and drop out at any moment. So that was really fortunate. So props to Rain and Molotov for holding that run down. And I remember I only got like an hour, maybe like an hour and a half of sleep. But I remember I went to sleep and like I just realized something. Like everything's still working. Like the world hasn't blown up. Like everything is okay. Everything's still running. And we'll live, and like it's going. And then like when I realized that, like I still had some built up stress, definitely, but like I definitely like calmed down a lot after that. Like, except for Contra 3, but
That's fine.
I was just in awe of Fresno, man.
So talk to me a little bit about like the donation, the charity. We could save the dark story. We're not going to mention that one, but
yeah.
Talk to me just like about like the event and like how much you expected to raise and like all that stuff.
Okay, so the donation goal was $5,000, and everyone told me that was very high. And I was like, yeah, but I want to aim high. And people were like, oh, okay, I guess. And one person, again, I won't name shame, but they were like, you should set it at $100. And then years later, when I mentioned that, they backtracked and they were like, oh, well, what I meant was that it would be at $100, and you just increase the goal accordingly. We're like, sure. But anyway, so sorry. What was your question? I lost track.
It's just like
kind
about
of focusing on this game too.
The donation total and just like.
Oh yeah, so we raised around $11,000 for the charity care, which is like way more than we thought what was possible. And it's funny, we were nearing $5,000 like on the second day, or on the final day, and the speed gamers were like, because they visited us, and they were really cool. In fact, Phil is coming to AGDQ. He hasn't been to a GDQ since CGDQ, so that'll be really cool.
That's cool.
But anyway, so yeah, he was really cool. He gave me good advice, and because before I had met the speed gamers and like realized that it was a lot harder to pull off a charity marathon than it looked. Like we were all like, we can do better because we're speedrunners, and they call themselves the speed gamers, but they don't even play through games that fast. But like, no, I have a lot of respect for them and what they do. It's just a different sort of raising money for charity. But anyway, he told me that if I showed him that goal of $5,000, he would have told me that's way too high. Like, that's just delusional. And what's really crazy, and I guess it's still kind of a thing, because we were at like $6,000, $7,000 when Final Fantasy VI started. It raises something like a third of the money at CGDQ. And what's funny is that we got the idea of like naming incentives from the speed gamers when someone donated $1,300 to name all the characters in Final Fantasy VII Sephiroth. And we're like, oh yeah, let's do that. We weren't like, oh, that's a great idea. We're like, oh yeah, why not? Let's do that. And then what's funny is that when the marathon started, we were like, oh yeah, let's name this character this. And like, oh yeah, that's a great name for that character. I'm going to donate for that. We like really got into it ourselves. When at first we're like, sure, it might raise a little bit extra money. And some of those names are not marathon appropriate nowadays, but you know, it was a different time back then. What's really funny is that during Final Fantasy VI, so one of the things that I said in the forums, which you're gonna laugh at this, Darkman, I said something along the lines of like, if you say any memes, I'm going to behead you. Like, it was really that strong.
No, I can 100% believe that.
If like you know, I enacted that policy nowadays, I think everyone in the Games Done Quick staff would be headless. Like, literally everyone.
I can so believe you saying that.
But, yeah, we're all doomed. Exactly. So, oh, I'm on the last boss, by the way.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to get a positioning specific trick. It's not. If I get the trick, that's good because then the boss fight isn't too difficult. It's not too difficult regardless, but I'm gonna lose some time if I don't get it. But anyway, so like I say, no memes, and of course, like when we get over 9,000, I'm actually taking a nap at this point because you know I'm so tired. I want to be around for the finale. So like during Final Fantasy VI, everyone's like over 9,000, and then like a couple minutes later, I'm like, hey, everyone, what's going on? They're like, nothing. I think this is a good spot. Might be slightly too far to the left, but we'll see. So yeah, there's still a lot of CGDQ lore. There is a CGDQ panel. Someone could probably link in the chat on YouTube where I go over a bunch of the lore with ROM Scout and Breakdown. I will say this. I want to give a big shout out to TJP, who's been chat from time to time, for just being a really great presence. He drove people around. He was a very calm presence when, frankly, a lot of us were a wreck, especially me. And just a good, positive presence in general during CGDQ. Okay. So time is not going to be until the screen fades to black. There's going to be one like fade out that's going to fake us out. And then there's going to be another fade out. But I think this is actually going to crush my CGDQ time just because I got such good dice balance. So I wasn't able to read chat, but I hope you all enjoyed, you know, the CGDQ nostalgia story chat.
I think they did.
There's more tales, and time is coming up soon, and time.
4103.
Okay, that's a PB.
No, like 2 PBs in a row! Excellent. And not only that, he PB'd while talking about CGDQ. Like,
yeah, I wasn't even focused on the run at that point. Like, I was definitely making more mistakes than I usually do, but I was like, whatever. Talking about CGDQ is more important. And, you know, we have, like, you know, 4 times the viewer count that, you know, the peak of CGDQ had, so...
True. Well, I just want to say my favorite story I wanted to say real quick is, you know, obviously everybody knows about the tracker and how it works nowadays and all that in the donate page. Yeah. Mike, what was the tracker in 2000?
It was a sheet of paper. So one of the reasons why we have the modern tracker as it is because SMK was doing it all by hand. And he was like, I'm going to write you guys some way to track donations because it was so horrible because he had to like keep track of all of the donation names and incentives. In Final Fantasy VI, like even if you're doing the any percent, you still get like 13 of the 14 characters. So you have to keep track of like 13 names throughout the run.
Yep. Yeah, I love that. We actually showed that on stream a couple of years ago when we were doing an interview with Mike and I think Matt at the same time.
Yeah.
That's
I will be bringing it to AGDQ, and let me see. There should be the link to. Oh, you already got the link to the CGDQ panels. You got us there.
So, but yeah, Mike, thank you so much for the run. Thank you, congrats on the PB, and thank you for the CGDQ retrospective. We're really
Oh, no problem. It was a lot of fun going over the CGDQ retrospective. I'm glad you nudged me to do it because if you didn't, I might have never gotten around to it.
I got you. Yeah, so that's gonna do it for Mike, we're gonna go on break, and when we come back, we will be starting the Metroid block. So
yeah, this marathon, I'm only running 2 games, not 10, because I know my limits.
That's fair.
And yes, it was Wirecast. That was a $500 streaming software. You are correct, Beast.
There you go. All right, well, that's gonna do it. So we'll be back in a couple minutes. Stick around.